When Emily first saw the room, it seemed too small. Not merely small, tiny, as though it had been built to store something inanimate rather than shelter a person. It contained a narrow bed, a metal wardrobe, a desk bolted to the wall, and a chair. There was barely enough space to turn sideways. The ceiling was so low that Emily could touch it with her fingertips. "At least it's quiet," said the woman from the agency. She stood in the doorway, avoiding the room with her eyes. "That's exactly what I need," Emily replied. After her mother's death, she needed somewhere no one would ask questions. She did not want to return to her apartment, where a cup with a dried tea bag still stood in the kitchen and her mother's robe hung in the bathroom. She did not want to see the neighbors or hear their sympathy. The building stood on the outskirts of town. It had once been a private clinic, later converted into cheap apartments. People lived on the first floor, offices occupied the second, and the third floor, according to the landlady, was barely used. "This used to be an observation room," the woman explained. "Patients recovering from surgery were kept here. The window was sealed years ago because of drafts. If you stay for a month, I can give you a discount." Emily agreed. That evening, she discovered that the door locked from the outside. The lock was old, with a long key like one for a mailbox. The handle moved from inside, but the lower bolt would not budge. Emily called the landlady. "Oh, right," the woman said after a pause. "That's one of its quirks. You can open the door with the handle. Just don't touch the lower lock." Emily tried again. The handle moved, but the door remained closed. She pulled harder. Something creaked in the hallway. "Is someone there?" No one answered. A few seconds later, the door opened by itself, just a hand's width. The corridor beyond was empty. Emily decided she simply had not turned the handle far enough. That night, she woke to knocking. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more. The sound came from the wall behind the bed. It was dull and careful, as if someone were tapping with one finger, trying not to wake her. Emily lay still and stared into the darkness. There were no windows, but a small lamp beneath the ceiling remained lit. The landlady had said the switch was broken. 3 knocks sounded again. Emily turned on her phone. 317. She knocked back. The wall fell silent. Then came a faint scraping sound, as if someone had pressed against the other side and dragged their fingernails across the plaster. In the morning, Emily found 5 long scratches behind the bed. The plaster inside them was wet. That day, she asked the landlady to show her the other rooms. "No one lives in this wing," the woman said. "Who is knocking at night?" The landlady smiled too quickly. "Pipes. The building is old. There are no pipes there." "Then it's the wiring." Emily did not argue. She worked from the room for several days. At first, her tasks helped distract her, but soon the walls seemed to press inward. The air never moved, and the room smelled of dampness mixed with something sweet and medicinal. On the 4th day, she noticed that the desk had moved closer to the bed, only a few inches, but she was certain she had not touched it. The legs were bolted to the floor, yet fresh scuff marks surrounded them. Emily called the landlady. "Are you sure?" the woman asked. "Yes. Perhaps you're imagining it. Are you sleeping badly?" At that moment, Emily heard breathing behind the wall. A slow inhale, a long pause, an exhale. She pressed her ear against the concrete. "Can you hear that?" Silence. Then the landlady said, "Don't press your ear against the wall." "Why?" "Just don't." The call ended. That night, the knocking woke her at 3:17. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more. This time, Emily did not answer. "Who is it?" she whispered. A weak female voice came from behind the wall. "Emily." She sat up. The voice was hoarse and exhausted, as though it had spent a long time practicing her name. "Who are you?" "Don't open it." "What?" "The door." Emily looked toward the entrance. A thin strip of light showed beneath it. "Why?" Scratching came from the wall. "She's waiting for you to fall asleep." Emily stopped breathing. "Who?" "I am." The knocking ceased. She stayed on the bed until dawn, never letting her feet touch the floor. In the morning, a folded note lay beneath the door. In crooked handwriting, it said, "Don't trust the voice." Emily called a taxi and left. 2 hours later, she returned. She told herself she had left important documents behind, but the documents were in her bag. The truth was that she needed to know who was behind the wall. The landlady was gone. The room stood open. The scratches had multiplied.
They covered the plaster behind the bed in tangled lines. In places, the plaster had fallen away, revealing gray concrete. Emily moved the bed. At head height, words had been carved into the wall. "Emily, don't leave me." Beneath them, "You promised." Emily knew the handwriting. Her mother had written that way on old notes, large, uneven letters with unnaturally long strokes. "Buy bread. Don't forget the medication. Call me when you're free." Emily touched the words. Something moved inside the wall. "Emmy?" Emily fell to her knees. Her mother had called her that only in the final months, when she had almost stopped recognizing her daughter. The voice was weak, gentle, and terribly familiar. "Mom? You came. You're dead. It's cold here. You're dead. You heard me calling. You just didn't listen." Emily covered her ears. "You called me from the hospital." "No, from here." She remembered the final night. Her mother had lain in a hospital bed connected to machines. Emily had watched the clock. At 3:17, the monitor began to beep. A nurse entered, said it was over, and pulled the sheet over her mother's face. Emily had walked into the hallway. She had not cried. She had only thought that she was finally free. "You left me," her mother said. "I couldn't do it anymore." "You could. I took care of you for 2 years. You could have stayed until the end. I was there." "No." The voice seemed to move closer, though concrete separated them. "You left too soon." "I couldn't breathe," Emily whispered. "You made me stay here." The room seemed to contract. The ceiling lowered. The bed pressed against her back. "I never brought you here." "You did. I took you to the hospital." "No." The light beneath the door flickered. "You signed the papers," her mother said. "You said you couldn't take me home." Emily looked at her wrist. A hospital bracelet circled it. It read, "Margaret Vance." She tore it off. Bruises marked the skin beneath. Emily ran to the door and pulled the handle. It would not open. She slammed her shoulder against it. "Let me out!" Her mother laughed behind the wall. "You locked yourself in." Emily screamed and called the police, the landlady, emergency services. Her phone showed a full battery, but no call connected. No service. Then the phone rang. The caller ID read, "Mom." Emily did not want to answer, but the ringing blended with the knocking in the wall. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more. She accepted the call. "Hello?" For several seconds there was only breathing. "Emmy," her mother said, "open the door." "You're outside?" "No." "Then where are you?" "Inside." The lamp went out. The room plunged into darkness. Something shifted beside the bed. The springs creaked as if someone had sat down. Then the mattress sank beside Emily's hip. "Don't touch me," she whispered. "You always said that." What do you want? You remember the room. Which room? The one where you left me. I took you to the hospital. No, you brought me here. A memory surfaced. A narrow room, a metal bed. Her mother in a white nightgown, scratching the wall with her fingernails. Emily standing in the doorway with a bag in her hand. I'll be back soon. Don't leave me. They'll help you here, you promised. The memory vanished. That wasn't me, Emily said. You forgot. I've never been here. You have. The landlady knows about this place. There is no landlady. I spoke to her. You spoke to me. Emily froze. Her mother's voice came from the phone, the wall, and directly behind her. You rented this room yourself. No. You came here yourself. No. You closed the door yourself. Emily felt along the door, found the keyhole, and reached into her pocket. The key was there, long, old, cold. She inserted it into the lock and turned. A click. The door opened.
Emily fell into the hallway. The lights came on. The corridor was short and ended in a concrete wall. Identical doors stood on either side. Their plaques read 11, 12, 13, 14. Emily turned around. Behind room 13 was not a bed or wardrobe, but a hospital room. White walls, an old IV stand, a machine with a green line frozen in place. A woman lay beneath a gray blanket. Her face was turned toward the doorway. Emily did not recognize her immediately. The skin was waxy, the lips blue, the hair stuck to her forehead. But it was her mother. Her eyes were open, and she was smiling. I couldn't. You could, her mother said. You said you'd be back in an hour. Emily looked at the clock. 3:17. The hands were not moving. How long have I been here? Her mother slowly raised one hand and pointed to the door opposite them. It bore the number 14. From behind it came a knock. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more. There's someone in there, Emily whispered. Yes. Who? You. Emily backed away. From behind the door came her own voice. Mom, I'll be back soon. It sounded younger, almost girlish. Emily remembered herself from 10 years earlier, the girl who had stood in a hospital room, unable to bear the smell of medicine, and walked out while her mother was still breathing. I'll be back in an hour, the voice repeated. Her mother laughed. You always come back. The door to room 14 opened slightly. Inside was the same room, the bed, the desk, the lamp. Another Emily sat on the bed, pale and exhausted. You came, she said. I'm not you. The other Emily smiled. Then why do you have my hands? Emily looked down. There was dried blood beneath her nails. Bruises circled her wrists. Where's the exit? You've already gone out. Where is the real exit? There isn't one. Behind her, Emily heard a dry creak. Her mother was trying to sit up on the cot. Don't leave me, she said. Emily ran. The doors slammed shut, one after another. Every plaque now bore the number 13. She ran, but the corridor never changed. The air grew thick, and her lungs would not fill. At last, a staircase appeared. She rushed down it. The first floor was empty. There was a reception desk, old chairs, a water cooler, and a glass entrance door. Beyond it lay the street, sunny, crowded, real. Emily pushed the door. It did not open. Her reflection in the glass was not her own. It was her mother. The old woman stood close behind the glass, pressing her palms against it. Her lips moved. Emily could not hear the words but understood them. You promised to come back. Emily turned. The lobby was empty. On the reception desk lay a registration ledger. On the last page was today's date. Under patient's name, someone had written, Emily Margaret Vance. Under accompanying person, mother. Under status, awaiting release. Emily threw the ledger to the floor. From deep inside the building came a knock. 3 times. A pause. 3 more. Then Emily's voice called, "Mom, I'll be back soon." She covered her ears, but the voice was already inside her head. "Mom, I'll be back soon." She pressed her back against the wall. The concrete beneath her palms was warm and soft, as though something alive were beating inside it. Someone knocked from within, 3 times. "Mom," Emily whispered. Her mother answered, "Emmy?" Emily slowly curled up on the floor. Several minutes later, the woman from the agency appeared in the corridor. She walked past Emily without looking at her and stopped at room 13. In her hand was a ring of keys. She unlocked the door and switched on the light. The room was empty. Only the wall behind the bed bore a fresh message. "Don't leave me." The woman removed the plaque, turned it over, and screwed it back into place. On the other side it read, 14. Then she closed the door from outside. Immediately, knocking began from within. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more, and Emily's voice, quiet and exhausted, almost childlike. "Mom, I'll be back soon."